Morning, folks. Nanu. Never mind. It's Friday morning. Welcome back to my world of stuff. Yeah, here we go again. It's another grey, drizzly, horrible March morning. March the 31st. No sign of spring. It's drizzly. It's a bit cold. It's pretty much horrible, really. Anyway, at the end of a fairly busy week, I'm toddling off to the cinema again. Friday is my cinema day, where possible. And I'm going to see Dungeons & Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves. Now, I don't play Dungeons & Dragons, never have, never will. So I'm just going to see a sort of a sword sorcery style fantasy adventure. And I'm quite pleased I'm going to go and see this without thinking, that's not right, that's not what they do in the games, that's not this, that's not that. I can just enjoy it for what it is. I'm sure there'll be things I think, that's obviously a games reference. But I'm just going for a good old adventure film. It looks like a lot of fun. Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Hugh Grant in best panto villain mode. I think it should be a lot of fun. So I shall report, pretty much after this. Quick, they're nicking our bits and bobs. Right. Yes, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is directed by Jonathan Goldstein, who's previously done a lot of work writing comedy for TV. He co-directed an underrated comedy film called Game Night a few years ago that starred Jason Bateman, along with John Francis Daley, who also co-directed and co-wrote the film. And it's based on a script by Michael Gillow and Chris McKay. Chris McKay has a background in animation. His first directorial efforts were the Lego Movie, Tomorrow War, which was a very good and quite underrated science fiction film with Chris Pratt, which I think went straight to Netflix a couple of years ago. And he's also the director of the upcoming Renfield, the looks like a very tongue-in-cheek version of Dracula with Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult. I mention all these names now because I think that will give a bit of colour to the Dungeons & Dragons film and the tone that it has. It's obviously based on the long-running Hasbro board game thingy, which I have no knowledge of. As I said in the intro, I've never played it. I never will. I don't really want to know very much about the game. I went into the film purely on the basis of seeing a fantasy, action-adventure romp. With no preconceptions, with no furrowed-browed wondering and worrying about, this is not, they don't do that in the game, and that doesn't happen in the game, and this takes liberties. It may well be that fans of the game may well be up in arms, but it's been quite well reviewed so far. It seems to have been well received, and certainly quite better received than the previous Dungeons & Dragons film, which I think was in 2010, Jeremy Irons, which I've never seen, and I never will. Life's too short. Anyway, this is a brand new budget-busting version. I think it cost $150 million, and it looks it, and it's terrific. It's great fun. I really, really enjoyed this film. It reminded me of those films that I grew up in the 60s and 70s, the old Sinbad films, those great rollicking, unapologetic romps with stop-motion animated monsters by Ray Harryhausen, and big manly heroes and action and fights and just good-natured romping. And that's exactly what I got with this film. We often see what is often said to be box-ticking and politically correct casting and all that sort of stuff. I don't think we get that in this film, because this film has no other intention than to entertain. As I say, it's based on the popular board game, and it's just huge fun. It's about 2 hours 20 minutes, but the time flew by. The film stars Chris Pine. It's a great cast: Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Renee Jean Page, who apparently is a heartthrob, who has escaped from Bridgerton on TV, Justice Smith, Sophia Lillis, and stealing every scene he's in is Hugh Grant. Now, Hugh Grant is an actor who I think, as he's got older, he's really grown into himself and his performances. He played a lot of those foppish sort of Notting Hill type Four Weddings and a Funeral blokes. They're very bland, very easy on their romantic figures. But as he's got older, he's seems to be enjoying his career much more now. He seems to be having a lot more fun playing baddies and larger-than-life characters. And it's been referenced to the fact that the character he plays here, Forge Fitzwilliam, is cast very much in the mould of the villain character whose name I can't remember, that he played in Paddington 2. He loves being the bad guy. This great film stars, as I say, Chris Pine. He plays a character called Edgin Darvis. He's a harper in this mythical kingdom. Basically a sort of a Robin Hood type character. The harpers are like Robin Hood. They steal from the rich, give to the poor, that sort of thing. He has a wife and a child, and his wife is unfortunately killed by this sort of demonic creature that poisons her and kills her, and he commits himself to looking after his young daughter, which he does when he teams up with a barbarian character called Holga, played by the scarily impressive Michelle Rodriguez. She seems ageless and timeless and always quite scary. Eventually, their escapades go a bit wrong. They have a little group with them, which includes Forge Fitzwilliam and Simon, played by Justice Smith, who's a sort of necromancer with not very good powers. And Edgin and Helga end up in prison. After a couple of years, they manage to escape because he wants to get back to his daughter, find his daughter, and find a gizmo, a MacGuffin, sort of resurrection tablet that can bring his wife back to life so that they can be reunited as a family. His daughter, however, is now in the custody of Forge Fitzwilliam, Hugh Grant's character, who was once a friend of Edgin in his group, but now isn't. He's taken over this huge city, and basically he just wants dominion over the domain here. He's bringing back these dangerous Olympic game type things which had been banned years ago because he wants to get his hands on money and power. Edgin obviously wants to get his daughter back, and with his new group that he pulls together, they set off on an extraordinary series of adventures to get back into the city, to get Edgin back with his daughter, and to defeat the plans of Forge Fitzwilliam. This is just great fun. It's great fun. You go and see this film, and it's very clever. As I said, it reminds me of those adventure films you used to get in the 50s, 60s, up to the 70s, those Ray Harryhausen monster films. But it's leavened by this very, very sharp wit, which is why I reference the work of Chris Mackay and Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley, who have this background in sharp, snappy, witty dialogue, and they bring all that to the table here. This is very funny, not in an irritating, snipey sort of way that you might get in a Taika Waititi Thor film, for example, which is constant, stupid, childish slapstick and humour. This is more witty wordplay and amusing character stuff, the humour that comes from the characters rather than just all the characters saying stupid things for the sake of it. It's a laugh out loud funny in places. There's lots of slapstick, there's lots of visual gags, there's lots of verbal gags. It's very funny, but it's also a real thrill ride. It's a real proper old school fantasy adventure. The effects are fantastic. The set pieces are fantastic. I've seen one or two reviews, particularly the rather sniffy Mark Kermode, who much as I like him as a critic, he really sets himself against anything big budget and multiplex pleasing fare. He prefers, slightly smaller films. So he's always a bit reluctant to admit when he's enjoyed a good action film. And he did enjoy this, but he was a bit sniffy about some of the effects. I don't know where he was coming from because it all looked terrific to me. But effects do. You have to, this film cost 150 million. And as I say, every dollar is up on the screen. The effects are awesome and they're incredible and expansive. Cities and monsters, very imaginative creature designs from dragons and an owl bear. One of the characters, Doric, played by Sophia Lillis, she's a shapeshifter. She changes into different creatures. It never stops. There's a huge sort of climax in this maze infested with monsters that they have to run around in the games. Just massive visual spectacle. But whereas sometimes we see these things and you think, yeah, well, seen all this before. But this is married with a good story. And considering it's a Dungeons and Dragons thing and I know nothing about, it's actually very comprehensible and very easy to follow, which I was a bit concerned. I thought, do I need to know things about Dungeons and Dragon lore to make sense of this? But I found I didn't. But I went in with that mindset of, I don't know about Dungeons and Dragons, so anything to do with Dungeons and Dragons is going to pass me by. I just want to see a rollicking adventure story. And that's exactly what I saw. It was absolutely great. And it worked because it had all the spectacle. It wasn't pompous because it was very funny. And some people may sniff and say, well, it's very sort of contemporary modern humour. Get over it. It works well. It's just very funny. It is quite Monty Python in some ways. There are one or two set pieces that think, oh yeah, I can see Monty Python doing that. There's a bit that sort of reminded me of some of the Monty Python and the Holy Grail bits. Had that sort of feel to it, and that's no bad thing. I just thought this was great. A real refreshing palate cleanser of a film. I've had a busy old week, and it was nice to sit down for 2 hours or so in a very quiet cinema, because I always go early in the morning, so there was only 3 of us there, and just sit back and just let this film just sweep me away. And I really got engrossed in it. Love great performances from a really likeable bunch of characters and really likeable cast. I've always liked Chris Pine, and I think this is a damn good film. Now, I understand it's not expected to do incredibly well at the box office this weekend, which is a shame, because I really want a sequel. I want to see these characters having more adventures. I'd love to see a trilogy of these films, but apparently it's not looking as if it's going to do brilliantly. However, it has rated well with critics, and I'm hoping that might give it what they call legs over the next few weeks, so it will turn a bit of a profit, because it deserves to do well. You see a lot of these blockbustery films and you think, they're cynical and shallow, and they don't deserve to do well. And when something comes along that's done with passion and energy and real inventiveness, you're sort of rooting for it and want it to be a hit. So I really want this to do well. So keep your fingers crossed it's going to do the business. And if you're not sure yourself about it because of the Dungeons and Dragons thing, don't worry about it, because I know less than nothing. And I had a complete blast, and I took the whole thing in. A great film. So I heartily recommend you nip out and see this weekend, or as soon as you can. Give it a boost at the box office, because it deserves to do really, really well. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves is in cinemas now, and I'm going to give it a big chunky 9 out of 10. I loved it. It was great fun. Right, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this little video. If you have, and I hope you have, why not press that subscribe button right by then, edging close to 300 subscribers, woo, which would just be a bit of a nice milestone landmark, and I really would like to get there quite soon. So please press that subscribe. Also like, and leave a thumbs up. Which is the same as a like. That's what a like is. And leave a comment. That'd be very nice too. And share. Tell your friends that there's this bloke who waffles on about films who's okay. That's me, by the way. Right, thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Until I do, keep taking the stuff.